and welcome to Pricing College with your hosts, Joanna Wells
and Aidan Campbell. I noticed in the last episode, Joanna didn't start with hello, and the hello is back in this one.
I realised that too. But anyway, hello. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about a different form of pricing. We talked about value pricing before, what it means, cost plus pricing, but we haven't covered competitive pricing. And I think that's an important one because what we've noticed, especially in our consulting, and looking at price points just generally in life, is that a lot of businesses are very, very keen on wanting to know what their competitors are pricing. It's almost like this fixation with setting prices by knowing what someone else is pricing. We just wanted to look into that and see whether that's a good approach. Look at the pros and the cons, really.
We're seeing it even in job descriptions and in pricing departments. We're seeing more and more web scraping, IT software being written to go out and look through all these different competitor websites and compare the prices and, mark to market and all this stuff against them, almost like as if it's the only way to do things. First of all, that's quite good technology. It's good to know these sort of things. And of course, there's a lot of shopping around softwares now also. If people are trying to buy on the internet, comparing prices, price comparison websites are prevalent in nearly all industries, certainly from hotels to insurance markets. But it's, let's dig into this a bit more and look at it from a more, probably a brick and mortar perspective a bit more.
I suppose what is it? I mean, you'll hear so many different terms banded around, like competitive pricing, match to market, market-based pricing, and they all have subtle differences. But let's just to go through very quickly what those are. In a nutshell, I suppose competitive-based pricing is really thinking about your pricing in relation to other people's prices. So what people do, like Aidan just mentioned there, a lot of companies now web scrape if they can, and then line up all their competitors' pricing for a particular item or product, and they go, okay, this person's 5, that person's 7. We're going to then set this price for this product around about here. It could be in the middle, it could be slightly above, whatever. But that's essentially competitive pricing, and that's what all sort of systems do.
And this makes a lot of sense, certainly in the internet era, or when you're reselling a product, when you're reselling, say, a branded product, whether that is a watch, a bottle of perfume, those sort of things that customers know that they're getting the item that is the same, and they can compare and contrast with different providers. Let's say, for example, supermarket chains, if they're based in a large hypermarket store on the edge of town, and their competitor is also based in a large hypermarket location on the edge of town, it does make a lot of sense for them to be tracking what their competitor is selling it at. And at the end of the day, you can be a little bit up, a little bit down, but within a bandwidth. If you're selling it at 2 to 3 times the price, clearly the educated customer is not really going to come to your store or your website.
Yeah, I think another example there would be, like petrol stations. You can get, 2 on the same street, one across the road from each other. So having one that's pricing, way up from the other one, people will notice. So having that sort of competitive understanding, awareness when you're setting prices in petrol stations makes sense. And that would be called a micro-segmentation strategy as well, which we touched on before. I suppose the other sort of different approach would be, market-based pricing. Now, essentially, what people do there, again, it's looking at supply and demand dynamics, what it costs to make and the demand for that at a certain time. Again, petrol stations petrol fuels industry would use that type of pricing. You can price high, perhaps if you've got a new product, and then over time, as you get to know the market, you can gradually bring the price down. That's a form of pricing strategy that people use there, and then you can gradually bring it up again based on demand and supply.
What I'm going to say here is a couple of concepts to really keep in mind. The first one is the bandwidth. The bandwidth is you can charge more or less within a certain bandwidth. How big that bandwidth is really depends. It really is important to bear in mind that no product or service is ever the same. Nothing is ever exactly the same because of customer service, because of exact location, because of potentially payment plans, credit cards you can use in that store. The example of the petrol station, is one petrol station cleaner than the other one when you go inside? Can you collect AirPoint miles with them? And that is, I'll give you the example, nearly every petrol station, there will be a price difference, even just a little bit down the road. And we're used to seeing that, which in a mark-to-market environment or competitive pricing environment doesn't make a huge amount of sense. The other one I'd really point out is, even if you're selling the same item, convenience is a massive thing. So who are you really comparing your pricing against? The example I'll give is, let's take a corner store convenient to your house. You have a late night emergency or something like that. You need to go out and pick up, whatever it is, a bottle of milk, kids' nappies or diapers, whatever it is, and you just want to pop out the door, run to the shop and buy that item. Is that shop, that corner store, are they comparing themselves to a hypermarket half an hour away who sells the exact same item but half the price? It wouldn't be very sensible if they were, because the bandwidth in that instance could be hugely different. What you're seeking to buy is the convenience, the solution to your problem, and it's not worth you jumping in the car and driving for half an hour. So it's bandwidth is something to know about, but the size of that bandwidth and who you're comparing against, those are the important things.
Yeah, I suppose when you're thinking about this, you can't really, when you track or your pricing against somebody else's, you're sort of making an assumption that your business model, your cost of operations, your way of doing business is the same. And no two businesses are the same. Even if you're selling the same stuff, you're doing it differently. Your operations are different. Your cost base are different. Your customer base even could be different, and their willingness to pay. So really, you're making a whole load of sweeping assumptions by literally bringing your price close to theirs when you do that. So I think it's important to know that when you're using competitive-based pricing, you are in a way capping your own revenue potential. And we said that before when we discussed cost plus. You're anchoring people, even your own organization, to cost when you're using cost plus. Equally, when you're using competitive-based pricing, you're anchoring your total economic value to your competitors, and it could be greater, and therefore you're reducing your pricing power. And also, it becomes a very confusing market when everybody's following everybody else. Who is the price leader, and why are they the leader? Should they be the leader? Is everybody second guessing each other and everyone's really just following you? Who knows? It just becomes quite a confusing game. And this is why do we need a pricing strategy? You need to know your value so you can, with confidence, go out in the market and rightfully set your price positioning in the market based on, one, value. I'm not dismissing, your competitor's price point. Competitive activity and tension is important to note down. But what I'm saying is costs and competition is just two of the inputs in setting a price. And the value of your business to the market and your customers will give you more pricing power.
I think, I completely agree with that. I think fundamentally a pricing department's role should be, one of the roles should be to increase that bandwidth size, the bandwidth we've spoken about, make it as big as possible, offer as much value as possible to the customers, educate the customers as much about your specific value, educate them about your reliability, your convenience, your trade agreement terms, your payment terms, the pleasantness and the friendliness of being in store, any offer sales, really push that aspect. And at the end of the day, there's a real value. People know about these things, they put that value on them. So the better you do, the better your customer service, even selling, commoditized items, let's say example of a watch. But any item like that, the better you sell, the more value you invest in your sales team, your marketing, your opening hours, whatever it possibly could be, that will serve to increase the bandwidth that you could sell up or down versus your competitors.
I think to sum up then, for me, is that competitive pricing is the next step in the evolution of the pricing journey. You've moved from cost plus, now you're looking outward to the market, to your competitors. But at the same point, it's still, quite tactical. Actually, it is a tactical pricing game that you're playing if you just stop there. And it indicates if you're to others that there actually isn't a strategy and perhaps that you are disconnected to your customers and therefore relying on other benchmarks like competitor benchmarks, indexing and things like that. You're also reducing your pricing power by going, oh, they're 7, the other ones are 5, we're going to be somewhere in the middle, when potentially you've got so much more to offer. What you're doing by that is underselling your offer.
Yeah, my final point will be, say you're competing in a market against one competitor. What happens if your competitor is just, making crazy decisions? What happens if they're driving their business into the ground? Which happens. You should certainly not try to replicate that or try to compete with them. A race to the bottom will destroy you both. So, just because someone else is doing something, there is this concept of intelligence or of crowds or crowd. That in crowds people make the right decisions. I'd also argue that in crowds people make the wrong decisions. So you have to really think through, why are you making that decision? And at the end of the day, everything is down to your own, what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you start looking to others for everything, it becomes quite, you don't have that 3, 6, 9 months view on the market. You're literally just always faced with the immediate, and everything becomes then sort of firefighting. Oh no, we've heard our competitors have just raised their price, and everyone goes rushing to either raise them higher than that or lower than that. That's the small end of town. You've got to think bigger than that and have a broader view and a game plan that is a little bit more than that, just day-to-day sort of tactics and reactive pricing, I suppose. And that in itself will give you so much more confidence when your competitors do raise prices or they launch a new product. You'll have a game plan in mind, and that will give the whole pricing department so much confidence, which in turn will feed into the sales teams and the tactics and guidance you give them as well.
Okay, so have a great day.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Goodbye.